What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. We're back with another freshman spotlight this season. We haven't done a lot of these because there really hasn't been that many spotlights to be had, but we're going to be looking at Florida wide receiver Eugene Wilson. So we're going to do an in-depth breakdown here, looking at his recruiting profile, what he's done this season, his PFF grades, and then looking at his outlook for next year, right? We're getting close into that college fantasy Devy kind of world. What is his value right now? What is his value could be? Where is he going to be going in drafts? And what does his profile look like? So we're going to get into all that and more here during this video. So hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll dive into Eugene Wilson on the other side of the intro. Exciting because we haven't had one of these in a while. So, I like to have some fun with this. We're just going to look at his recruiting profile real quick. Where was he ranked coming out of high school? He was a slow riser. So the one thing about Eugene, like he came on really late. A lot of people didn't even know about him, to be honest. I think Todd Vincent, who is a Devy writer and analyst, he talked about him being recruited by the wide receiver coach. And that's a little tip in there. And he's like, oh, hey, this kid could really go. When you're looking overall, his senior year, he really popped off. And that's really why he saw a huge rise in the rankings. He was outside the top 100 pretty much in every recruiting area there nationally. But at the end of it, when you're looking at just on three, they had him at wide receiver 4. They were very high on him. 247 Sports had him at 16. ESPN had him at 7. I didn't know ESPN still did ratings. And then Rivals at 38, right? So he was very, a top 20 guy nationally by the end of kind of the recruiting cycle. But they talked about, things that they liked. Possesses elite change of direction, short area quickness. Yes, he does that very well. 4.540, sub 4.540. So the speed, everything is there. They actually comped him to Chris Olave, which I really kind of liked. Like, I think, when you're looking at it, he's kind of a little shorter, but I do think that, they did play both ways in high school. Olave did as well. Maybe that huge senior season too, they comped him to that, which Olave had as well to try to get recruited to Ohio State. And I like it. I think it's a fun comp. I really do think that there is a little bit of part of his game. I mean, the interesting thing is you can see it right there. Eugene Wilson came in at 165. And now when we look at what his numbers are at, 205. I don't know what Florida's doing down there. I don't know. Florida fans, if you're watching this, are they cooking the books down there, giving him some extra pounds? Or what kind of strength and conditioning things you got going down there? What are you popping down there? I'm just kidding. I don't want to get too controversial. But hey, at 205, that's a lot different than 165, right? So either they're cooking the books a little bit, or maybe he was a little heavier than what the recruiting agencies thought. But when you look at the numbers this year, I think, first of all, just the raw numbers, 45 catches, 422 yards. If you're looking at PFF stats, a 9.4 average, 4 touchdowns, 45 receptions was really good. And then when you're looking at just the numbers too, in terms of, you can see it right there, no drops. And he's been targeted 51 times. He's caught the ball 45 times. His receiving percentage is 88%, which is really, really good. Especially, he's just a sure-handed guy. Like, against Georgia, this 2 weeks ago, he had 11 targets, 11 catches. Against Arkansas, 10 targets, 8 catches. This kid just catches the ball, and that's something to note. Now, his receiving grades at 82.9, really good. Now, I think the one thing that stands out about his, just in general, kind of his grades and his PFF grades and everything there, out wide percentage and slot percentage is pretty much even, right? When you're looking at it, like, and that's weird because most people would just assume he's going to be a slot guy based on his size. But I think, when you coming in and they have that Olave comp in the back of my mind now, it fits for him, right? He can play out wide, especially at 205. Then he can go into the slot. And if he can keep that acceleration and keep that explosiveness at that weight, we're talking about a legitimate prospect now, right? We're not talking about like the Antonio Williams, those type of guys that we've seen kind of fall off a little bit. Maybe Eugene Wilson's here to stay in terms of, hey, elite NFL upside, right? Now, his ADOT is the one thing. It's only 2.8 because he catches a lot of balls behind the line of scrimmage. Now, that's kind of gone up a little bit. I think in this offense, it's a lot of screens. There's a lot of quick slants. Georgia, I mean, he had his ADOT was 0.3. Then this last week then against Arkansas, when they played Arkansas, he had a 6.5 ADOT. So we've seen him kind of fluctuate a little bit. I think he's getting more comfortable in this offense, but this offense does lend itself to a lot of behind the scrimmage throws or just at the scrimmage throws. And Eugene's going to be one of those guys that gets those, which is good for his raw production. But we want to see him kind of, expand on that, get out of the numbers, kind of get down the field, which is something that, he's going to need to be able to do. But we'll see. We'll see as that goes. So, when we're looking at just the numbers too, I like to put this up to see like where his depth of targets are coming from. So deep 20 plus yards or more, he only has 2 targets. He has no catches in that area. Medium, the 10 to 19 yards, he has 15% target share in that area. 8 targets, 5 catches. Receiving grade is pretty good. It's 93. So anything from medium to behind the line of scrimmage, he has a receiving grade that's over 90. Right. So that's really, really good. Above that, though, it's 58%. And he has not caught anything that's been thrown to him. He only had 2 targets, though. Now, short in that 0 to 9, his target percentage is 25%. And then behind the line of scrimmage, his target percentage is 55%. So you see where he's really getting a lot of those targets. Now he hasn't dropped one ball behind the line of scrimmage. He's only dropped one ball behind the line of scrimmage and short, and that was the short one. He's 12 or 13 from the 0 to 9 yard range. So you can see sure-handed he's going to catch that. But that is why that ADOT is the way it is. I think that's just something to note when you're looking at the profile as a whole. Like, now, does that matter in NFL? I don't know. I think that he's going to have to learn kind of hopefully to get those deep balls. We want to see those deep targets. Can he be that deep threat? I think that's the next evolution of his game. Just to kind of go over, okay, looking at it as a whole full prospect here, that's the next part. All right, you can do the short stuff. Now, what can you do? Can you elevate your game, get those deep passes, and kind of be that next game breaker threat, right? Kind of how Olave elevated his game, right? And I think, when you look at the production, though, not bad for a freshman. Now, let's talk about overall what we're thinking here. Looking at the depth chart. So we're going off offensive scheme. It's going to probably placate him pretty well. I think he's going to get a lot of targets, especially after this year as a sophomore. I think he's going to be that leading wide receiver in that room, right? When Ricky Pearsall leaves, and then there's really no one else, in my opinion, in that wide receiver room. I think it's Eugene Wilson, right? He's the guy. Now, overall, when you're looking at what they're recruiting, so I always like to kind of talk about, all right, what's coming next, right? What wide receivers are coming next? Right now, they have the number 3 overall class. Napier is really crushing it in terms of the recruiting style. So what does he got? So he's got Jure Hawkins coming in. He's a 4-star kid. He's number 28 overall, 5'9", 165. Kind of fits the same mold as Eugene. So for me, when I'm looking at that, I don't think, that's not competition. That's essentially the same thing that Eugene Wilson plays. I don't see him losing anything there, right? Then if you're looking at the next wide receiver on the board, Tawaski Abrams, 5'11", 175. He's 35 overall prospect right now. And Isaiah Williams, he's 6', 172. He's the 52 rated wide receiver prospect. As of now, just based on the recruits that they have coming in November, Eugene's the guy, right? So that's the way to look at kind of the overall just, hey, Eugene's the dude. He's going to be the guy moving forward, and he can be that wide receiver 1. Now, as far as Devy, so if we're going to look at Devy and we're going to kind of talk about what that class looks like, where does he fit in? Like, where does he go? So we have Carnell Tate in the 26 class. Brandon Ennis is still there. Makai Lemon is still there. Obviously, Zachariah Branch is still in there. Maybe Jonte Cook, Hakeem Williams. But I think Eugene Wilson is right there, right? I think he's in that top 7. He's definitely kind of performed and been in there. If Ennis and Tate, don't perform, I have a hard time seeing him jump over those guys, though. Maybe Ennis, but not Tate. Tate's a stud. Tate's going to be a dude. But Zachariah Branch is pretty much right there. Hakeem Williams and Jonte Cook and Makai Lemon, though, we've seen Williams at least do something. Cook and Lemon are still projects. We've seen Eugene do that. So if you wanted to put him at wide receiver 4 of the class, I completely understand, right? As far as Devy ranking goes, just based on historical Devy drafts and where those type of guys go, you're looking at 3rd round. I think Eugene Wilson's a 3rd round guy, maybe 2nd, depending on who's in your league. But he's kind of shoring up to be that 3rd round wide receiver that could break out, right? And then you're looking at him being a 1st round guy the next year. So he's still value probably heading into it, unless he really kind of crushes at the end of the season. And then we're going to see his value shoot up. But you have to give him credit, because out of that 26 class, he's really rising up the board. He's doing a great job and doing exactly what he's supposed to do from a Devy and just a college football perspective. So that's Eugene Wilson. Shout out to Todd and all these guys that were on him a little earlier. But Florida wide receiver, it looks like he's going to be coming next in terms of the value and everything that we really like there. So appreciate you guys. We'll catch you guys on another freshman spotlight this week. We got probably another one coming, because the freshmen now are starting to turn it on. So I'll see you next time.